The DJ had just announced our first dance when my mother appeared at my elbow. The opening notes of our carefully selected song filled the ballroom, and James was holding out his hand to lead me onto the floor. "Before you start," Mom said, her voice carrying over the music, "we need to discuss the trust fund." I stopped. "Mom, not now. We're about to—" "This is important, Rachel. Your grandmother's wedding trust. Your father and I have decided that Miranda should manage it instead of you." My sister Miranda materialized beside her, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It just makes sense. I have experience with investments. You've always been more creative than financial." The music was still playing. 200 guests were watching. James's hand was still extended, frozen mid-reach. "We can discuss this later," I said quietly. "There's nothing to discuss," my mother said, her tone brooking no argument. "Miranda will take over as trustee. She's better with money than you are. You understand?" It wasn't a question. My grandmother had established the trust 15 years ago. $500,000 designated for each grandchild's wedding and early married life. The funds were released upon marriage, managed by the recipient for the first 5 years before full transfer of control. I'd received the first distribution 2 weeks ago, $125,000 to cover the wedding, with the remaining $375,000 to be dispersed quarterly for housing, education, or investment as I saw fit. My mother had never mentioned having a problem with this arrangement, until now, in the middle of my wedding reception. Miranda held out her hand. "I'll need you to sign the transfer paperwork." I brought it with me. Of course she had. James's father, William Thornton, had been standing nearby talking to his sister. He was a tall man, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, who'd built a successful law firm over 30 years.
He turned at Miranda's words, his expression shifting from pleasant to alert.
"Excuse me," he said, approaching our small circle.
Did I hear correctly? You want Rachel to transfer control of her inheritance to her sister. My mother smiled at him. It's a family matter, William. We're just ensuring the money is managed properly. By properly, you mean by someone other than the person my grandmother designated? I said, finding my voice. Your grandmother didn't understand how irresponsible you could be with money, Mom said. Miranda has a finance degree. She makes sure nothing gets wasted. William pulled out his phone. Rachel, who's the trustee of your grandmother's estate? Harrison and Locke, I said. The firm that handled all her estate planning. William's fingers moved across his screen. And the trust was established with you as the sole beneficiary of your portion upon marriage? Yes. He looked at my mother. Then, legally, you have no authority to transfer those funds to anyone else. The trust documents are explicit. My mother's smile tightened. This is a family decision. No, William interrupted, his tone professional but firm. This is a legal matter. And what you're asking Rachel to do is voluntarily surrender assets that are legally hers. Miranda stepped forward. No one's surrendering anything. I'm just going to manage it better than she would. Based on what evidence? William asked. Based on the fact that I have a finance degree and she has an art history degree, Miranda said, her voice sharp now. Based on the fact that she's never invested anything in her life. Based on the fact that I know what I'm doing. Rachel, William said. Still calm, did your grandmother's trust documents include any provision for your sister to manage your portion? No, she left separate trusts for each grandchild. Miranda has her own $500,000. And has Miranda received hers yet? I looked at my sister, whose face had gone slightly pink. Miranda got married 3 years ago. William's eyebrows rose. So she's already received and managed her trust funds? How did that go, Miranda? The silence was telling. My mother jumped in. That's not relevant. It's entirely relevant, William said. If Miranda is claiming superior financial management skills as grounds for controlling Rachel's money, her track record with her own inheritance is absolutely pertinent. James, who'd been watching this unfold with growing tension in his jaw, spoke for the first time. Miranda, what happened to your trust fund? Our mother answered instead. There were some unfortunate investments. She lost it, I said quietly, the pieces clicking together. Didn't she? That's why you're doing this. Miranda's face flushed fully red now. I didn't lose it. The market was volatile. My financial advisor was your boyfriend at the time. I said, memory surfacing. The one who convinced you to invest in his startup. The startup that failed within a year. That's not fair. How much is left, Miranda? William asked. She didn't answer. Miranda, my mother said warningly. About $80,000, Miranda finally admitted. But that's because I was helping Mom and Dad with some expenses. Family helps family. William looked at my parents. Let me guess. You've been using Miranda's trust fund to supplement your lifestyle, and now that it's nearly depleted, you want access to Rachel's. My father, who'd been silent until now, stepped forward. Now see here. No, you see here, William said, his voice still level but carrying an edge now. You're attempting to coerce my daughter-in-law into surrendering her legal inheritance at her wedding reception. You brought transfer paperwork to her wedding. This isn't a family discussion. This is a calculated attempt at financial manipulation. The music had stopped. Our guests were no longer pretending not to watch. The entire ballroom had gone quiet. My mother's expression shifted to wounded. How dare you accuse us of manipulation? We're trying to protect Rachel from herself. By taking her money, James said. That's not protection. That's theft. We're her parents, my father said. We know what's best for her. She's 32 years old, William said. She's a curator at a major art museum. She manages a multi-million-dollar collection. But you think she can't manage her own inheritance?
He pulled up something on his phone and showed it to me.
Is this the number for Harrison and Locke's emergency trustee line? I nodded. He dialed it, putting the call on speaker. A voice answered after 2 rings. Harrison and Locke Trust Services. This is Martin Chun. Mr. Chun, this is William Thornton. I'm calling on behalf of Rachel Morrison, beneficiary of the Morrison Family Trust established by Margaret Morrison. There's a situation we need to address immediately. Of course. How can I help? William explained the situation concisely, my family's attempt to pressure me into transferring control. The claim that my sister should manage the funds, the transfer paperwork brought to my wedding. There was a brief pause. Then, is Rachel Morrison present? I'm here, I said. Miss Morrison, are you being pressured to sign any documents regarding your trust? Yes. Do you wish to transfer control of your trust to anyone else? No. Then I'm noting in your file right now that any transfer documents signed today or within the next 30 days are to be considered invalid due to undue influence. I'm also flagging your account for potential elder abuse or, in this case, family coercion. No changes can be made to your trust without a video call verification with me personally, during which you must be alone and confirm there's no pressure being applied. My mother's face had gone white. This is absurd, Mrs. Morrison. Martin Chun's voice came through the speaker. Attempting to pressure a beneficiary into surrendering their inheritance is legally actionable. If you continue this conversation, I will be obligated to report it to the appropriate authorities. The call ended. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. William looked at my parents. I believe the matter is settled. Rachel's inheritance remains under her control, as her grandmother intended. If you attempt to pressure her about this again, I will personally ensure that Harrison and Locke files a formal complaint for attempted financial exploitation. My father's face was purple with rage. You can't threaten us. That's not a threat. It's a statement of fact. William's voice remained calm. Now, I believe my son and his bride were about to have their first dance. I suggest you return to your seats. My mother looked at me, tears forming. After everything we've done for you, after all the sacrifices we made raising you, this is how you repay us. By keeping the inheritance my grandmother left me, I said. The one she carefully set up to protect from exactly this kind of pressure? You're choosing money over family, my father said. You're choosing my money over our relationship, I countered. There's a difference. Miranda grabbed my mother's arm. Come on, this is pointless. She's clearly been poisoned against us. They walked away, my mother crying loudly enough for the entire room to hear. Several relatives followed them, shooting me disapproving looks. But more stayed seated, watching with expressions ranging from sympathy to knowing recognition. James's Aunt Carol approached us. Your grandmother was a smart woman, she said to me. She knew exactly what she was doing when she set up those trusts. I was there when she established them. She told the attorney specifically to make them ironclad because she was worried about this exact scenario. Really? She said, and I quote, "My daughter will try to get her hands on the girl's money." Make sure she can't. Carol squeezed my hand. Your grandmother loved you. She wanted you to have this. Don't let them take it. The DJ, bless him, restarted our song. James held out his hand again. Shall we? He said, his voice gentle. We danced, and slowly the reception returned to normal. But I saw my parents and Miranda leave early, taking several relatives with them. The text started before we'd even cut the cake. Miranda, I can't believe you humiliated Mom and Dad like that. At your own wedding, Dad. Your mother is devastated. I hope you're proud of yourself, Mom. I will never forgive you for choosing money over your family. Never, Aunt. Corinne, your mother called me crying. How could you be so cruel? Uncle Tom heard what happened. Your mom said you refused to help Miranda after she fell on hard times. Is that really who you are? I showed them to William, who photographed each one. Document everything, he said. This isn't over, he was right. Over the next week, while James and I were supposed to be enjoying our honeymoon in Italy, the campaign escalated. My mother posted on Facebook, heartbroken. When children value money over the parents who raise them, praying for her soul. The post got 247 likes and dozens of sympathetic comments. Miranda posted a tearful video. When your sister has everything and woe and help family in need. Guess blood doesn't mean what it used to. That went semi-viral in our extended family circle, getting shared 83 times. My father sent an email to every family member detailing how ungrateful and cruel I was being. How they only asked me to help my struggling sister and I D6 lawyers on them instead. 42 relatives received this email. 19 responded with support for my parents. 8 blocked me on social media. But 15 reached out privately with very different stories. Cousin Beth, your dad borrowed $15,000 from my parents 5 years ago for emergency medical expenses. They found out he bought a boat. Never got paid back, Aunt Linda. Miranda asked me to invest in one of her opportunities last year. I said no. She didn't speak to me for 8 months. Uncle James, your mom has been asking me to co-sign a loan for them. Now I know why they need money. They've been living off Miranda's trust. The pattern was clear. My parents had been financially irresponsible for years, using Miranda's trust fund to subsidize their lifestyle. Now that her money was almost gone, they'd targeted mine. William had warned me this would happen. They're going to try to paint you as the villain, he'd said before we left for Italy. Greedy, selfish, choosing money over family. Don't engage. Document everything and let them bury themselves. Martin Chun from Harrison and Locke called 3 days into our honeymoon. Ms. Morrison, I wanted to inform you of a development. Your mother attempted to access your trust account this morning. My stomach dropped. How? She called claiming to be you, requesting a password reset and fund transfer. The caller couldn't answer the security questions, but the attempt was sophisticated. She had your social security number, date of birth, and grandmother's maiden name. What happens now? I flagged your account with the highest security level. Any access attempts will require video verification with you personally. Showing photo ID, I've also reported the attempted fraud to our legal team. They're recommending you file a police report. For my own mother? Miss Morrison, she attempted to steal $375,000. That's not a family dispute. That's felony fraud. I filed the police report from our hotel in Rome. The Italian police were confused but helpful, connecting me with the Portland Financial Crimes Division via video call. Detective Sarah Williams listened to everything: the wedding confrontation, the texts, the social media campaign, the attempted account access. This is elder abuse in reverse, she said. Adults exploiting their adult children. We see it more than you'd think, especially with inheritance situations. Do you want to prosecute? I looked at James, who was listening on the call. It's your choice, he said. But they're not going to stop. Prosecute, I said. The charges were filed while we were still in Italy. My parents and Miranda were charged with attempted fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. The arrest warrants were executed the day we flew home. According to Detective Williams, My mother answered the door in her bathrobe, insisting there had been a mistake. My father tried to claim they were just helping me manage money I didn't understand. Miranda cried and said she'd only been following our mother's instructions. All three were booked and charged. Bail was set at $25,000 each. They couldn't make it. Miranda's trust fund was nearly gone. My parents had been living beyond their means for years, with credit cards maxed out and a second mortgage on their house. They spent 6 days in jail before my uncle Richard, my father's brother, bailed them out with a lecture that could reportedly be heard throughout the station. Uncle Richard called me that night. I paid their bail because they're family, but Rachel, what they did was criminal. Your grandmother would be furious. Did Grandma know they were like this? She knew. Why do you think she set up the trusts the way she did? She told me once that your mother saw her inheritance as something she was entitled to manage for you. That's why every trust was ironclad, with no family override clauses. I wish she'd told me. She didn't want to poison your relationship with your parents. She hoped they'd respect her wishes. But she planned for this, just in case. The legal process took 4 months. My parents' attorney tried to negotiate drop the charges, they'd leave me alone, everyone moves on. William, who'd connected me with a criminal defense attorney to protect my interests, sent back a firm no. They need consequences, or they'll target the next family member with money. The evidence was overwhelming. The attempted account access. The recorded call with Martin Chan at the wedding. The text messages. The social media posts trying to pressure me. The plea deal came 3 weeks before trial. Guilty pleas to attempted fraud and identity theft. Sentences of 3 years probation, $40,000 restitution for my legal fees and security costs, mandatory financial counseling, and a 5-year restraining order preventing contact with me. Miranda, as a lesser participant, got 2 years probation and 200 hours community service. The restitution would be paid at $500 monthly for almost 7 years. Every month they'll remember what they tried to do, Williams said when we reviewed the agreement. And every month you'll be reminded that you stood up for yourself. The family fallout was severe and predictable. About 60% of my relatives sided with my parents. My mother's sisters stopped speaking to me. Several cousins blocked me on social media. At my grandfather's funeral 8 months later, multiple relatives turned their backs when I approached, but 40% quietly supported me. Uncle Richard, your grandmother knew this would happen. She prepared for it. You honored her wishes. Cousin Beth, I've watched your parents manipulate people for years. You're the first person to hold them accountable. Aunt Linda, your mother tried to get me to co-sign a loan last week. I said no. She hasn't spoken to me since. Now I know why she needs money. My grandmother's best friend. Eleanor called on what would have been Grandma's 80th birthday. Margaret told me she was worried about your mother getting to your trust. Eleanor said. She made me promise that if anything happened, I'd tell you to fight. She said you were strong enough to stand up to them, and she was proud of that strength. I cried after that call. Grateful tears. That was 11 months ago. James and I used the trust fund exactly as my grandmother intended. We put a down payment on a house. Beautiful. Craftsman with a studio space for my art. We invested $150,000 in a diversified portfolio managed by a fiduciary advisor. We set aside $75,000 for future children's education. The rest sits in secure accounts, growing, waiting for the next phase of our life. My parents live in a smaller house now. They had to sell their home to pay legal fees and mounting debts. According to Uncle Richard, they're both working part-time and struggling financially. Miranda works as a bank teller, having lost her finance job when the felony charges became public. She's engaged again to someone Uncle Richard describes as another guy with big ideas and no money. I haven't seen or spoken to any of them. The restraining order is in effect for 4 more years. The restitution payments arrive on the 1st of each month. $500, electronically deposited with a case number. I donate every payment to an arts education fund in my grandmother's name. Turning their attempted theft into opportunities for young artists feels like the best possible use of that money. William told me recently that he's proud of how I handled everything. You could have given in to keep the peace, he said. Most people would have. But you protected what your grandmother worked so hard to give you. That takes courage. I think about my grandmother often. About the care she took to protect me, even after her death. About the trust she had that I'd be strong enough to defend her wishes. The inheritance isn't just money. It's her final gift, not just the dollars, but the freedom to build a life without people who only valued what they could take from me. My mother wanted me to believe that keeping my inheritance made me selfish. That choosing my grandmother's wishes over my family's demands made me cruel. She was wrong. I honored the woman who loved me enough to plan for this exact situation. I protected the gift she'd carefully constructed. I refused to let anyone override her final wishes. The trust fund sits in my name safe, secure, exactly where my grandmother intended. And every month when that $500 payment arrives, I remember that I chose myself. That I valued my grandmother's love more than my mother's manipulation. That I stopped being the accommodating daughter and became the granddaughter worthy of Margaret Morrison's trust. The money is just numbers in an account. But what it represents, my autonomy, my grandmother's love, my refusal to be exploited, that's priceless. And no amount of family pressure will ever make me regret fighting for it.